They won't tell you this, but seeing the truth is dangerous. When you begin to see beyond illusion, beyond comfort, beyond the noise, you become a threat. Not to others, but to the system that needs you asleep. Niccolò Machiavelli once said, "The one who adapts his course of action to the times will prosper." Yet what he didn't say is that the one who sees too much too soon often walks alone. You start noticing what people ignore, the games behind the smiles, the weakness behind false power, the fear hidden in loud confidence. And as your eyes sharpen, so does your solitude. You begin to realize that most people don't want truth. They want comfort dressed as wisdom. They want applause for their misery. But you want freedom. And that's where it begins. The danger of seeing what others don't. Because to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be, requires a strength that feels like madness. You'll question your worth. You'll question your sanity. You'll even question God's plan. But what if I told you this sight, this pain of perception, is not a curse? It's the beginning of your rebirth? Stay here with me. Don't scroll away, because what I'm about to tell you could change the way you see everything. Your enemies, your pain, your past, and yourself. This is not another motivational speech. This is a mirror held up to your soul, forged in Machiavellian truth and divine order. If you've ever felt like the outsider, the overthinker, the one who feels too much and sees too deep, this message is for you, because the gift of sight is also the call to power. And once you learn to harness it, you will no longer fear standing alone. You'll rule from it. When you begin to see what others don't, the first thing you lose is belonging. You'll feel it, that quiet distance between you and the world you used to recognize. Conversations feel shallow. Friendships begin to fade, not from conflict, but from a silent misalignment. It's like God pulled back the curtain for you, and now you can't pretend it's still closed. Machiavelli wrote that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. When your eyes open, you become that new order within yourself. You no longer serve the illusion of who you once were. You start leading you. And that threatens every familiar pattern that once defined your comfort. But let me tell you something most people won't. This loneliness is not punishment, it's purification. You're being stripped of the unnecessary. God's higher order is removing every voice, every distraction, every comfort that kept you from hearing his whisper. The silence you feel? That's not emptiness. That's alignment. You're not being isolated. You're being recalibrated. The noise of the world fades because you're tuning into something far more powerful, the quiet authority of a man who knows himself, and that knowing, it burns. Because awareness doesn't make you feel strong at first. It makes you feel exposed, misunderstood, even fragile. But that's how the iron is shaped, through fire, not praise. You might look around and think, why can't anyone else see this? And the answer is simple. Not everyone is meant to. To see what others don't is to carry a weight most aren't built for. But it's also the beginning of liberation. This is where the transformation begins. When you stop trying to be understood and start trying to understand your purpose. When you stop chasing belonging and start walking with conviction. You'll begin to see that isolation was never the enemy. It was the invitation to meet the man you were designed to become. So if you're watching this late at night, maybe from your room or your car, if life feels quieter than usual, that's no coincidence. This message found you because it was meant to. You're not falling apart. You're falling into place. There comes a moment after the silence when you begin to see not just people, but patterns. You start recognizing that emotions, yours and others, are not truth. They're signals. Temporary storms meant to be observed, not obeyed. This is where most men lose themselves. They think control means suppression. But Machiavelli understood. Control begins with understanding, not denial. He once said, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. Look closely at your life, and you'll see how often your emotions were someone else's weapon. How fear made you compliant. How anger blinded you. how desire made you predictable. The Machiavellian mind doesn't kill emotion. It studies it. It turns the chaos of feeling into the calm of insight. Because a man who can sit inside his own emotion without becoming it becomes untouchable. He no longer reacts. He responds. He doesn't crumble when life tests him. He listens. He discerns. He adapts. That's power. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that moves mountains quietly. And yet, here's the paradox. The same sensitivity that once hurt you is the source of your strength. You see deeper because you feel deeper. You read faces, tones, silences. You notice the tremor in someone's voice before they lie. You sense betrayal before it speaks. That awareness used to drain you. Now it will guide you. God's divine order gave you this perception for a reason. You were not meant to drown in emotion. You were meant to transform it, to turn heartbreak into wisdom, pain into patience, confusion into clarity. When you align thought with divine intent, emotion becomes your ally. It stops controlling you and starts informing you. So here's the truth. When you learn to think beyond your feelings, you stop living as a slave to reaction and start walking as a creator of direction. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "What is this teaching me?" Pause for a second. Breathe. This isn't just another video. This is the moment you reclaim your mind from the chaos of emotion. If you're still here, I want you to comment right now. I see through the noise. Say it twice. Lock it in, because that phrase marks the beginning of your rebirth. Every man who awakens to truth faces one defining moment: betrayal. Not the small kind that stings and fades, but the kind that changes the way you see humanity forever. It might come from a friend you trusted, a partner you gave your heart to, a family member you believed in. And when it happens, something inside you shatters, not your faith in people, but your illusion about them. Machiavelli understood this too well. He wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." He didn't glorify deceit, he revealed its nature. He knew that loyalty is rare because self-interest rules most hearts. And when you see this truth up close, you feel the burn of betrayal as a sacred fire. It's the moment your naivete dies and your vision begins. You see, betrayal doesn't just show you who others are. It shows you who you've been pretending to be. You start realizing how often you ignored the signs, how often you made excuses, how often you stayed because you were afraid to stand alone. But that pain, that humiliation, that heartbreak is not destruction. It's surgery. God's higher order is cutting away the false layers so that what remains is real, unshakable, pure, aware. Betrayal teaches discernment. You stop listening to words and start studying actions. You stop needing apologies and start reading patterns. And in that process, you begin to reclaim the most sacred kind of power: self-trust. When you truly trust yourself again, the world loses its power over you. You no longer chase validation. You no longer fear rejection. Because you've learned that betrayal can't break what is already rooted in truth. It only removes what was built on illusion. If you're hearing this and your chest tightens, if you've been betrayed and still carry that quiet ache, hear me clearly. This pain is not your enemy. It's your awakening. Forgive them, not for their sake, but for your own liberation. Because forgiveness doesn't mean weakness. It means refusing to let someone else's shadow dictate your light. Close your eyes for a second and whisper it to yourself. I am not broken. I am being refined. Say it again. Let your heart believe it. This was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. There's a point every man reaches when he realizes that rage, noise, and reaction aren't strength. They're the proof that he's still ruled by what he doesn't control. True masculine power is calm. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It's still observant and deliberate. The kind of energy that doesn't need to prove itself because it knows itself. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The fool reacts quickly, emotionally, impulsively. The wise man waits, reads the field, and strikes when it matters. That's the calm you must master. The calm that intimidates because it cannot be provoked. You see, most men today have been taught to confuse volume with strength. But silence is lethal. Silence is where discernment grows. In that stillness, your thoughts stop chasing emotions and start serving vision. That's when you become dangerous in the right way, unbothered by disrespect, unshaken by chaos, unhurried by pressure. You move with a divine patience that unnerves the world. There's a reason storms begin in silence. There's a reason warriors pray before they fight. Stillness isn't passivity, it's preparation. It's the alignment between will and purpose, between what you want and what God's higher order intends for you. When you walk with that alignment, people feel it before you speak. Your presence shifts rooms. Your tone carries weight. You don't need to dominate. Your calm commands it. But understand this, stillness is not easy. You'll be tested, provoked, mocked for your restraint. Weak minds mistake calm for weakness. But that's fine, let them. Because while they're shouting, you're studying. While they're reacting, you're advancing. And when the time comes to move, you'll move with precision, and you'll win quietly. Close your eyes and picture this. You standing alone, everything you feared behind you, everything you desire in front of you. You're not rushing, you're not begging, you're not proving. You're becoming. That's the masculine calm, the one forged in betrayal, refined in isolation, and perfected in silence. If you feel this truth in your chest, comment below, "My calm is my power." Say it twice. Let it anchor in your identity. Because from this point forward, stillness is no longer your weakness, it's your weapon. There comes a time when the man you've been must die, not in body, but in identity. Everything that once defined you, your insecurities, your reputation, your need for approval, must be burned to ash. Because you cannot walk into the future wearing the skin of your past, Machiavelli warned. Whoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. He wasn't speaking only of politics or kingdoms. He was speaking of the self, the internal empire every man must rule. You cannot command your destiny if you're still serving your history. Think about it. Every version of you that once existed, the people-pleaser, the overthinker, the wounded one, had its purpose. That version kept you alive. But now it keeps you small. You're not meant to repeat the same emotional cycle. You're meant to outgrow it, and growth is violent. It's not comfortable. It's not pretty. It's a death, a sacred one. When you begin to change, people will sense it. Some will admire it. Others will feel threatened by it. They'll try to remind you who you used to be, not out of malice, but because your evolution exposes their stagnation. Do not explain yourself. Do not argue for your new identity. Simply embody it. Because the moment you try to convince others, you weaken the very transformation you're protecting. You see, rebirth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Before the trauma, before the disappointment, before the fear. That's the man God intended. Unfiltered, fearless, disciplined, aligned. And to return to him, you must release the version of you that played small to survive. This isn't about ego. It's about obedience to the higher order of your purpose. When you stop identifying with weakness, the world stops treating you like you're weak. You start moving with conviction. You start speaking from clarity. You start making decisions that match your divine potential. If you're listening to this and something inside you whispers, "I'm ready," that's not your mind. That's your spirit confirming what it's known all along. The man you were is gone. The man you're becoming has arrived. Take one breath, slow and deep, and say to yourself, "I release who I was. I rise as who I am." Say it again. Let it echo. Let it mark this moment. Because tonight, something in you dies, so that something far greater can finally live. There's a wound inside every man that no one else can see. It's the quiet ache you carry. From the moments you were betrayed, misunderstood, abandoned, or blamed, you wear it well. You smile through it. You move forward. But somewhere inside, that wound still whispers, "You're not enough." Forgiveness isn't about letting anyone else off the hook. It's about setting yourself free from that whisper. Because as long as you carry resentment, you remain chained to the very people who hurt you. You think about them, dream about them, replay the moments, build walls around your heart to never feel that way again. But Machiavelli understood something profound about human nature. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception, and the greatest deception of all is believing that holding on to pain keeps you safe. It doesn't. It poisons you slowly. It turns your strength into suspicion, your awareness into bitterness, and before you know it, the wound begins to rule you. You don't trust love. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust life. But listen closely. God's higher order never designed you to live guarded. It designed you to live guided. Inner forgiveness is not an act of surrender. It's an act of strategy. It's reclaiming your mind from the prison of the past. When you forgive, you don't say, "It was okay." You say, "It will no longer control me." You take the power back because forgiveness doesn't erase the lesson. It extracts the wisdom. You begin to see that every heartbreak was a refinement. Every disappointment was direction. Every betrayal was God's hand, redirecting you to higher ground. And when that realization hits, peace begins to return, not as a fragile emotion, but as a quiet strength, a knowing that you've survived what was meant to destroy you. So tonight, let's make this moment sacred. Think of the person who broke you. Maybe it's someone else. Maybe it's you. Breathe in and whisper, "I forgive so I can be free." Say it again, louder this time. Because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion. And when you forgive from that place, with clarity, not confusion, something changes in the atmosphere around you. You rise lighter, calmer, sharper, because now your past doesn't define you. It bows to you. Your mind is the battlefield where every victory and every defeat begins. Most men lose there long before life ever beats them. They lose to doubt, to self-criticism, to the quiet voice that says, "You're not capable." But Machiavelli knew that mastery starts not with force, but with foresight. He wrote, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." Every thought you repeat becomes a command to your identity. If you constantly say, "I can't," your mind believes it. If you say, "I am built for more," your mind begins to adapt. That's the secret of rewiring, the art of using thought as construction, not destruction. You see, the brain is obedient. It doesn't choose sides. It follows orders. If you feed it fear, it will defend fear. If you feed it faith, it will find a way. And that's where power begins, not in affirmations shouted to the sky, but in consistent, disciplined thought aligned with truth and divine order. When you think intentionally, you start to notice something incredible. The same mind that once sabotaged you begins to serve you. You stop being reactive and start being strategic. You begin to say things like, "This setback is instruction." You start looking at pain and asking, "What strength is being built in me right now?" That's how Machiavellian calm turns chaos into wisdom, by mastering the internal conversation. Because the world doesn't change when you shout louder. It changes when your thoughts align. With the higher order guiding your path, let me talk to you directly now. Maybe you're sitting in your car, phone in your hand, scrolling to distract yourself from the noise in your mind. Maybe you've been fighting the same battle silently. Anxiety, failure, exhaustion. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still seeking, still trying. That's proof that your mind hasn't given up on you. It's just waiting for direction. So tonight, begin again. Rewire the narrative. Replace "I'm tired" with "I'm training." Replace "I failed" with "I'm being refined." Replace "I'm lost" with "I'm being led." If this message hits deep, type it in the comments right now. My thoughts obey my power. Say it twice. Anchor it into your soul. Because from this moment forward, you are no longer ruled by thought. You are its commander. Words are not just sounds. They are blueprints. Every word you speak, whether whispered or shouted, builds the world you live in. Machiavelli understood that speech was power. In The Prince, he wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." Yet he also knew, what is spoken shapes what is seen. Healing through words begins when you stop speaking from your wounds and start speaking from your wisdom. You see, when you constantly say, "I'm broken," your spirit obeys. When you say, "I'm becoming," your life begins to rearrange itself in alignment with that declaration. God's higher order listens, not to your fears, but to your language. Every time you speak strength, even in weakness, you call power back into your life. That's why silence can be dangerous when filled with self-hate. Your inner dialogue, those quiet, cutting thoughts, they're words too. And if left unchecked, they become your reality. So tonight, I ask you to be careful with how you speak about yourself. You are not the mistakes you made. You are the man who survived them. You are not the sum of what went wrong. You are the living proof that it didn't end you. Healing words are not sweet lies. They are strategic truths. When you speak healing, you're not ignoring your pain. You're guiding it. You're saying, "I may be bleeding, but I'm still breathing. And that means my story is still being written." That's not denial. That's dominion. You see, the world teaches men to speak strength but hide pain. But Machiavellian wisdom teaches the opposite, to use pain as rhetoric, to let truth refine your tone, to let clarity make your words razor sharp and healing at once. Because when you heal through words, you don't just inspire others, you cleanse yourself. So tonight, speak to yourself differently. Instead of, "I'm lost," say, "I'm being led." Instead of, "No one understands me," say, "I was chosen to see deeper." Instead of, "I can't go on," say, "God is not finished with me." Take a breath and say it out loud. Right now. My words build me. Say it again. With conviction. Because one day when you look back, you'll realize every healed part of you began with a single, courageous sentence. One you finally believed. Every man carries a shadow. The parts of himself he's been taught to deny, suppress or hide. Anger, lust, envy, pride. The hunger for control. The thirst for validation. The secret need to be seen. Society tells you to bury it. Religion tells you to fear it. But Machiavelli, he understood something most never will. That power is never in denial. It's in direction. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both, not because cruelty is noble, but because control over the darker impulses of human nature gives you leverage. Your darkness is not evil. It's energy. Untrained, it destroys. Trained, it builds empires. You can't heal what you refuse to confront. Your anger, for example, it's not the enemy. It's a signal that something in your life has been dishonored. Your jealousy, not weakness, but proof that you crave growth. Your ambition, not greed, but a divine spark calling you to rise higher. When you bring these shadows into light, they stop manipulating you. You begin to use them as fuel, not fire. This is where many men fail. They try to be good instead of being whole. But goodness without awareness becomes fragility. Man who denies his shadow becomes easy to deceive. He's ruled by impulses he refuses to admit, but a man who studies his shadow, he becomes unshakable. He knows his triggers, his temptations, his weak spots, and he disciplines them. God's higher order didn't design you to be perfect. It designed you to be balanced. Light without darkness is blindness. Discipline without emotion is emptiness. You were created to carry both, courage and compassion, power and patience, steel and softness. That balance is the mark of mastery. So instead of saying, "I need to get rid of this side of me," say, "I need to understand it." Study your reactions. Notice when your ego speaks. Catch the pattern before it repeats. That awareness, that calm observation, that's divine warfare. Because when you turn your darkness into discipline, you stop fearing yourself. And that's when the world starts respecting you. You become the kind of man who walks into a room, says little, and yet the air itself seems to recognize him. Close your eyes and whisper this: "My darkness serves my destiny." Say it twice, with strength, because when your shadow bows to your purpose, even your pain becomes holy. There comes a point when you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this shaping in me?" That's when you begin to understand divine order, not as luck, not as coincidence, but as an unseen architecture guiding your steps with precision. Every loss, every detour, every silence was never random. It was arrangement. It was timing. It was God, not withholding your destiny, but preparing you to hold it. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to control the other half." He understood what most men forget. You cannot control everything, but you can control yourself. And when your discipline meets divine order, your life begins to unfold with an ease that doesn't need explanation. Alignment doesn't mean life gets easy. It means your peace stops depending on what happens. You begin to sense when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when silence carries more power. You stop forcing outcomes because you trust timing. That's not passivity, that's precision. That's faith meeting wisdom. God's higher order operates in layers. We cannot see the opportunity that vanished. It was protection, the air. Person who left, it was direction. The closed door, it was redirection. When you align yourself, you stop fighting what's leaving and start focusing on what's arriving. You see, alignment is not about sitting still and waiting for miracles. It's about walking with integrity even when you don't yet understand the map. It's trusting that obedience will reveal what ambition never could. It's knowing that every setback is a setup for refinement. Look back on your life. Every so-called failure, every heartbreak, every delay. Didn't they all push you towards something greater? That's divine order. That's the unseen support that's been guiding you all along. And the moment you stop resisting it, your energy shifts. You move differently. You stop chasing approval because you start walking in purpose. If you're listening right now, wondering why your life feels like a test, it's because it is, but not a test to break you. A test to prepare you, to see if you can handle the weight of the blessings meant for you. Close your eyes for a second. Breathe in and say softly, "I am aligned with God's plan." Say it again, because once you believe that, nothing, and I mean nothing, can move you off your path. There's a kind of strength that doesn't roar. It remembers. It remembers who you were before doubt taught you to shrink, before love disappointed you, before the world convinced you that your worth depended on what you achieved. This is the return to self-love. Not the kind written in cliches, but the kind that rebuilds a man from within. Machiavelli said, "Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times, but the change that matters most is internal, the conduct of your heart toward yourself, because if you keep speaking to yourself like an enemy, you'll keep living like one. The world reflects how you treat you, not what you say, but what you truly believe. Self-love is not arrogance. It's acknowledgement. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I've made mistakes, but I am not my mistakes. It's giving yourself the same patience you once wasted on people who couldn't see your value. It's learning to rest without guilt, to rebuild without apology, and to rise without explanation. You see, the absence of self-love is why so many powerful men fall. They chase validation, wealth, admiration, but the void inside remains hungry, because nothing external can fill a man who's abandoned himself. You can conquer cities, but if you lose your own soul, what's the point? God's higher order never created you to beg for worth. It placed it in you before you ever proved a thing. You don't earn worth. You awaken to it. You remember it in the stillness, in the prayers, in the quiet moments when you realize you've survived every storm that tried to bury you. So tonight, forgive yourself for the things you tolerated, the times you stayed silent, the moments you didn't believe in your own power. Forgive yourself for not knowing better, and honor yourself for learning now. Self-love in its truest form, is discipline. It's protecting your peace like a fortress. It's choosing people who respect your time. It's saying no without guilt and yes without fear. It's no longer asking, "Am I enough?" and finally realizing, "I always was." So right now, put your hand over your heart and speak this truth aloud. I am worth the love I give. Say it twice, slowly, because that's not just affirmation, and that's remembrance. And the man who remembers his worth walks like one who already carries the crown. Gratitude is not weakness. It's not passive optimism. It's strategy, divine strategy, because when you learn to thank God not just for what's pleasant, but for what's painful, you step into a level of wisdom few ever reach. Gratitude is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that everything is useful. Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." Gratitude is that wisdom in motion. It's looking at a setback and saying, "I may not understand this yet, but I will." It's feeling the weight of failure and whispering, "This too is building me." It's not naive. It's disciplined awareness. When you live without gratitude, you live in resistance. You fight everything, the process, the people, even yourself. But when you live with gratitude, you align with divine order. You stop asking a "why me?" and start asking "what for?" Every moment becomes a lesson. Every wound becomes a teacher. Every delay becomes protection. You see, gratitude isn't about ignoring pain. It's about interpreting it correctly. When your heart is thankful even in discomfort, your mind becomes clear enough to see opportunity where others see endings. That's why grateful men rise faster, because they learn faster. They don't drown in bitterness. They build through it. Look back for a second. Think about what you've survived. The nights you didn't think you'd make it through, the heartbreaks that felt final, the failures that embarrassed you, and yet, you're here. Not by luck, by endurance, by grace, by design. That alone deserves your gratitude. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a posture. It's how you face life. It's how you speak to God. When you say thank you in the middle of the storm, you declare your faith in the higher order guiding you. You're saying, "I may not see the full picture, but I trust the artist." And here's the paradox. The more grateful you are, the more disciplined you become, because gratitude keeps you grounded. It reminds you that power without humility is corruption, that mastery without grace is emptiness. Take a deep breath, my brother. Say softly, "I thank God for everything that made me who I am." Say it again. Let the words sink in like iron into your soul. Because the man who can look at his scars and still say thank you, that man has already won. Now you've come full circle, through betrayal, forgiveness, stillness, discipline, and rebirth. You've walked through the fire that most avoid, and now something in you has shifted. You're no longer chasing answers. You are the answer, because when a man finally learns to see, truly see, he no longer moves like the crowd. He moves like destiny. Machiavelli once said, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves." That's the balance you now carry, the clarity of the fox, sharp, strategic, unreadable, and the courage of the lion, decisive, fearless, unstoppable. This is what it means to see what others don't, not to judge them, not to boast about vision, but to live from it, with calm, faith, and power. You see the games people play, and you don't react. You sense deception, and you stay composed. You feel the energy in a room, and you choose your silence like a blade. Because now, your sight is guided by something greater than instinct. It's guided by divine order. God has opened your eyes not for vanity, but for purpose. You are meant to build, to lead, to restore, and yes, there will still be nights when you feel alone. But solitude now feels different. It's sacred. It's no longer emptiness. It's command. You've learned to find peace in stillness, strength in restraint, and direction in the quiet. Voice that speaks beneath the noise. That's the mark of a man who has seen too much and yet chosen to stay kind. The danger of seeing what others don't isn't that you'll lose people, it's that you'll lose illusion. You'll stop living for validation. You'll stop needing approval. You'll stop begging for peace because you are peace. You'll walk with a presence that doesn't demand recognition but earns it effortlessly. If you've made it this far, it means your soul was ready. This message didn't find you by chance. It was sent to you through divine timing. So I want you to comment right now. I walk with clarity and calm. Say it twice. Let it anchor in your identity, because from this moment on, you are no longer the man who sees and fears. You are the man who sees and builds. You are no longer reacting to life. You are directing it, and every step you take from here on out carries the wisdom of Machiavelli, the strength of discipline, the peace of forgiveness, and the light of divine alignment. So walk tall, walk silent, walk certain, because you, my brother, are no longer blind. You are chosen to see, and that sight is your power.